Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I am excited that you are here. I'm glad to be able to share a little bit of knowledge with you, and I'm hoping that you're really enjoying this. We are talking about this idea of sinking funds and what they are. If you followed me at all, you know that one of the first things I recommend you do is to have an emergency fund. Now, what is the emergency fund for? It's for the unexpected events that come up in your life, which you are absolutely going to have happen to you, so that you're prepared for those things. Now, your first step is to have a miniature emergency fund equal to about 1 week of pay, and then long term, once you're debt free, or if you've decided to ignore your debt and move on, you would have an emergency fund that is 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. But tonight we're talking about sinking funds. Now, sinking funds help you to guard against tapping into your emergency fund for known expenses. For example, all of us know that the tires on our car are going to wear out. But many of us pretend that this isn't true, and so we just keep driving the car, using up all our paycheck, never planning for that car repair, and boom, we suddenly have an emergency when it's time to replace them. The way to avoid this is to know and look into the future and say, oh, I'm going to actually have to spend that money. And so you plan for it. So you would break it out into something that you can handle. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's weekly. You'll put some amount of money aside for car repairs. In my household, we do about $200 a month towards car repairs. On average, you're probably looking about 10% of your income towards total transportation expenses. Now that would be, including like insurance, things like that, but not including fuel. So it would be insurance, repairs, registration, things along those lines. Please sit down, do the math, know what yours are. And this is just one example. If you're a homeowner, you would have a sinking fund for your roof. Have a specific sport or hobby that you do, and you know every so often that you have to spend a certain amount on something, you would prepare for those things. And allowing yourself to do this will keep you out of spending on your emergency fund all the time. Now keep in mind, anytime that you have used your emergency fund, you actually need to hit pause on whatever other goal you were doing and try to refill that emergency fund, because you never want to go through life without that in place. I need about $300 to replace a set of tires. I'm looking at that, I say, well, I put about 15,000 miles a year on my family vehicle, and I know that with that in mind, it would take me about 2 years before I need a new set of tires. If I were to take that, just break it out and say over 24 months, $300, I only really have to put about $12 or $13 a month aside. Pretty easy. But the thing with vehicles particularly, I'm going to harp on vehicles a little bit because it's one of those things that gets a lot of us off guard. It causes emergencies often. What I would like you to do is consider how much you've spent on your vehicle repairs in the last 12 or 24 months and use that kind of as a guideline as how much you should be putting aside monthly for that particular expense. Now, what about bigger ticket items that are even harder to save for, like maybe that repairing of the roof? What you'd want to do in that situation is you'd want to know about when the last roof was installed. You might need to get someone to come out and inspect that roof, and they would look at it and say, well, I think it should be good for another 5 or 10 years. Be careful here, because when you get an inspector to come out, they may try to sell you a new roof if they're not on the up and up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amount of time that's estimated until it needs to be replaced, and I'm going to get an estimate for what the roof would cost, and I'm going to divide that out, and I'll put that aside. That way when the day comes to finally replace it, I will be prepared. It's really important that you're considering this stuff. The other thing to keep in mind is vehicles. You're going to need to replace them every so often, so how much are you going to put aside for that so that you're ready when the time comes? Hopefully this gave you a few pointers. You're able to think through some of the things that you need a sinking fund for, and you're able to better plan, better budget, and stay out of that emergency lane. Remember, money is emotional, and if you always are reacting emotionally to your money, that means that you're not well prepared for the future. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I hope you've really enjoyed this video.